Welcome to Shaq's house. Shaq's house. That's our Shaq. You're now in Shaq's house. Welcome to Shaq's house.
What's up, Shaq Housers? How y'all doing? It's your boy, Shaq House, the one and only here. Oh, what's this? And what be that? My school, the University of Connecticut, the UConn Huskies, they're in the Final Four tonight. They're gonna be playing at 8:49 tonight against Miami. Oh, they're going all the way. The men are going all the way. They're gonna get there. They're gonna get another NCAA national championship. That's right. I was hoping the women could be there too, so we can do a repeat of what we did in 2014 and when I was a junior back there in 2004. But it's gonna be every 10 years. So next year, men and women of UConn are gonna win. But anyway, what are we talking about today? We're going to be talking about a character who, to my surprise, no comic fan has done a video for on YouTube. I can't find a single one. And that being the case, since nobody else has picked up their skirt, grabbed their balls, and done anything on this character,
Then it pleases me to be the first.
yeah, that's my best impression of Orson Welles as Unicron in Transformers. That's right, it pleases me to be the first. Who are we talking about? Doctor Nemesis. Who? Check it out.
Who is Dr. Nemesis? James Nicola Bradley was born in San Francisco on December 1st, 1906. His father, Nicola, invented a revolutionary electric generator, but his financial backer, the Hellfire Club's Cornelius Shaw, Sebastian Shaw's grandfather, I guess, used it to power a prototype Sentinel robot, seeking to combat the Overmen his seers predicted would eventually displace mankind. However, several time-traveling X-Men from the modern era, including James's future self, Dr. Nemesis, arrived and destroyed the Sentinel, but flying debris from the Sentinel killed James's father, Nicola. Several months later, James's mother, Catherine, she died during childbirth due to blood loss incurred by a placenta previa. Catherine was unaware that the doctor performing the delivery was in fact the future adult version of James, who traveled back to the past to honor a promise he made to his mother. After delivering his younger self, Dr. Nemesis returned to the future. But with his father now gone as well, James was raised by his maternal grandparents, John and Mary Price. Growing up under the care of his grandparents, it became apparent that he possessed a great intellect to rival that of his father's. In fact, James's heightened intelligence came from an X gene, making him one of the first known mutants of the 20th century. James's scientific mind and curiosity caused him to create a number of serums that he often tested on himself, one of which slowed the aging process down in his body, giving him an extended lifespan, which is why in the present day, even though he's well past his centennial, he looks like he's in his 40s. James went on to the university and earned a medical doctorate and became a surgical doctor, as well as keeping a keen interest in all scientific pursuits from chemistry, the biology, the robotics. Speaking of which, in 1939, he and Dr. Phineas Horton created a lifelike human android, later known as the Human Torch or Jim Hammond. However, the android had a flaw that caused it to burst into flame whenever it was exposed to oxygen. But Horton decided to publicly unveil the android anyway before the spontaneous combustion flaw could be solved, and then he took all the credit for the robot, causing Bradley to angrily sever their partnership, but he left with a second, unfinished android. But Dr. Bradley, he soon perfected this android, naming him Volton, and telling him that he was human. Volton, he used his electrical powers to briefly become a costume superhero, and Dr. Bradley did the same thing, donning a surgeon's mask and brandishing hypodermic needles of truth serum to fight crime as Dr. Nemesis. By day, Dr. Bradley practiced medicine at Mercy Hospital in New York. However, his engagement to nurse Mary Strong fell apart, and Bradley, still angry that he had not received recognition and acclaim for co-creating the original Human Torch, he developed an arrogant, condescending demeanor, the one we all know him in his present day as. In 1942, Nazi agents convinced Bradley to help force the USA out of World War II. Taking the alias Dr. Death and gathering a team of similarly embittered heroes that he named the Battle Axis, Volton, Strongman, the Human Meteor, Spider Queen, Bradley masterminded the Mojave Project to create a powerful earthquake and release poisonous gas across California. The Battle Axes, they captured the heroic Invaders, and Bradley unmasked himself to the torch, but the Invaders broke free and destroyed Bradley's equipment. When Captain America revealed Volton was an android, the enraged Volton electrocuted Bradley, seemingly killing him. But in actuality, he was alive. Recovering, Bradley repented for working with the Nazis and returned to his Doctor Nemesis alias. He invented biochemical ways to increase his lifespan and rebuild his eyes to increase his sensory range, and spent the following decades after World War II in South America, repentant over his allegiance with the Nazis and hunting down Nazi super scientists. After 60 years, he finally eliminated the main scientists, and in recent years, the X-Men's Beast and Archangel, seeking to reverse the Scarlet Witch's decimation of mutant kind, recruited Doctor Nemesis into the X Club, his nascent science team alongside Box, Madison Jeffries, Dr. Yuriko Takiguchi, and Dr. Kavita Rao. The X Club, they invented time travel devices and decided to gather and study pre-mutant DNA from Dr. Nemesis' parents. However, as stated earlier, upon traveling to 1906, they saw Nicola Bradley killed by Cornelius Shaw's prototype Sentinel, and later, Dr. Nemesis returned to the past to minister to his mother, who died giving birth to his younger self. He's currently on Krakoa, and with Krakoa's guidance, Dr. Nemesis he's harvested flowers that enabled the new nation to flourish quickly. One of his blooms were used for growing gateways and provided instant mutant transportation to Krakoa. Another bloom produced self-sustaining habitats, which were part of Krakoa's interconnected consciousness, and a third, non-naturally occurring flower produced no places, habitats from outside of Krakoa's consciousness, like the one that Moira MacTaggert stayed in when she was on Krakoa. Harvest centers in the prehistoric Savage Land and in a Krakoan habitat on Mars processed 3 other flowers from the work of Dr. Nemesis. These were used to create the revolutionary drugs L, I, and M, which respectively extend human life by 5 years, prevent diseases of the mind, and function as the most adaptive, effective antibiotics that the world has ever seen. Yeah, he invented all those drugs, but still doesn't get the credit for it. But what are his powers, actually? And no, his power is not snark, so get that out of your head. Okay, what are his powers? Dr. Nemesis is a mutant possessing what he himself has described as a self-evolving intellect, which greatly implies that he possesses superhuman intelligence. And that being the case, it increases his natural data storage, compiling and retrieval abilities, and also his intellect may work independently of his conscious mind, intuitively performing genius-level calculations and deductions without his direct guidance. His mind intuitively gains an understanding of ideas and concepts that he focuses on, building upon his existing knowledge. Dr. Nemesis has undergone several genetic enhancements at his own hands, using biochemical modifications of his own design. He possesses a substantially retarded aging process, as he is well past his centennial, and an increased immune system. His eyes have been specially improved to possess long-range pinpoint vision. He can track moving objects over a great distance and target them with exceptional accuracy. He can also see in various spectra of light beyond the human ability, giving him a form of X-ray vision. He can selectively illuminate these spectra, shifting his visual range to meet the needs of a situation. As for weapons, Dr. Nemesis typically carries a pneumatic dart gun, which fires syringes over considerable distances. They're often filled with tranquilizing solutions of his own design, although he can easily adjust the mixture. He has also self-evolved his inner ears during his 20s, giving him immunity to disorientation and nausea. James Bradley, he holds an MD and is extensively taught in robotics and biochemistry. His mutant superhuman intellect has allowed him to master virtually all forms of medical and scientific disciplines. He wears a white suit, a surgical mask, and a fedora. Basically, his power makes him a polymath. If Dr. Gregory House could attribute his genius intellect and acerbic wit to a mutant gene, he'd be Dr. Nemesis. I mean, the man has quotables and insults for days. His modern-day version may have been inspired by either House or Rocket Romano from ER, as both characters, their insults and clapbacks are works of art. Now, Dr. Nemesis was part of the X-Men, the X-Club, and X-Force. And one of his many contributions to being part of the teams one of the things he did was finally laying to rest the mutant status of Cloak and Dagger. So sorry, kiddies, they ain't mutants. The good doctor is currently on Krakoa, and he's a one-man science department. He single-handedly created all the life-saving pharmaceuticals that Krakoa sells to the world in order to gain leverage. He's now growing psychedelic plants from out of his own head. He's still the same asshole, don't get it twisted. And he no longer wears a fedora, and he actually took the time to flirting with Dazzler and giving her a dance. But I digress. Anyway, let's do a compare and contrast. And just to be clear, in this compare and contrast, I'm not including Smart Alec from Alpha Flight. His mutant status is still unknown. Now, how does Dr. Nemesis' mutant ability compare to that of mutants who are similarly powered? Well, like agility, intelligence is a very hard quality to quantify. I mean, it can be seen as anything from the ability to accumulate knowledge, to recalling it, applying it in some fashion, or some combination of all of the above. But here are some mutants who do compare. Monet St. Croix, M, or Penance, superhuman intelligence is part of her power set, and her intelligence seems to be the ability to rapidly adapt to new concepts. This is how she was able to quickly learn to use advanced technology after only a momentary examination. But beyond that one occasion in Generation X number 10 or number 2, there hasn't been any real overt use of her superhuman intelligence. And even back then, it was her twin sisters, Claudette and Nicole, in disguise as her, as the M twins. She's very bright, she can understand patterns, make accurate leaps of logic, but then again, so can other smart people. The superhuman aspect of her intelligence isn't abundantly clear, that's what I'm saying. Now the Gremlin and Martin Henry Strong. We've been told that superhuman intelligence is their power, but we've never actually seen it in action. The Gremlin, he's got to be around Artie or Leech's age, and clearly his mutation allowed him to mature rapidly and develop a mechanical and biogenetic aptitude well above normal. Now Quentin Quire, or Kid Omega, he's an Omega-level mutant with several mental abilities, including superhuman intelligence. Quentin's brain somehow compresses excessive amounts of information into each thought, giving him the data-crunching power of a supercomputer. He reportedly thinks 10 million brilliant thoughts a second, and is capable of advanced parallel processing, focusing on numerous lines of thought simultaneously, while demonstrating considerable faculties for observation, analysis, memory retention, and creativity. Now, Dr. Nemesis, his self-evolved intellect, it seems to act like an all-purpose version of Forge's power for inventing and understanding machinery. His mind intuitively gains an understanding of ideas and concepts that he focuses on, building upon his existing knowledge and creating a much larger knowledge base that he can draw upon in the future. However, we're only seeing him now after roughly 100 years of mental growth, so whatever his mind functioned like in the early days of his mutation, when his knowledge base was still maturing, is unknown. His power, to me, it seems to function like the human brain submerged in the super soldier serum that turned Steve Rogers into Captain America. Nemesis. Dr. Nemesis, I would love to see him paired up against like Dr. Cecilia Reyes, because it'd be like House going back against Cuddy, two medical doctors who have like unlimited snark. Or better yet, put Sync, Everett Thomas, put him next to Dr. Nemesis, let him duplicate his power and see what Sync can do with it. Let's see if it turns him into a jerk as well too. And this would be good under specific conditions, like Peter David or Scott Lobdell. If one of them was writing a story involving Dr. Nemesis, think of the possibilities and the quotables. Wow. Oh, and lastly, regarding Dr. Nemesis' first appearance, Lightning Comics was one of the many titles published by Ace magazines during the 1940s and 50s, and they were not affiliated with Marvel Comics. The company went out of business in 1956, and all the characters that had been created remained unused for decades and eventually entered the public domain. Marvel picked up Dr. Nemesis for their 1993 Invaders series and used his likeness and character traits for their own version, although they did initially change his codename to Dr. Death. He wasn't reverted back to Dr. Nemesis until his appearance in Uncanny X-Men, where his history was retconned into being a mutant. Okay, Shackhousers, that's what I got for you this week. Tune in next week. I might be doing another power comparison or another power description such as this. But tune in. Hope you have a good week. See you then. Later.
Mansion, apartment.
Shack, house. Yes!
Yeah.